But yeah, that's wild. I can't believe you just hit a dab pen like that all day. That's insane.
I know.
Yeah,
It's probably not helping my sinuses, to be honest.
for sure, for sure. She's going through 1 gram of THC wax per day.
That is not true. They call it THC because it actually stands for the hater concoction.
This doesn't even make sense.
Let's all take a moment to be thankful that we all exist in the year 2025. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of awful, horrible things that have happened and are still happening today. But if we compare it to life back in the 1500s, I'd say we should be grateful. The year 1500 is generally considered to be the end of the medieval period, often referred to as the Middle Ages, marking the start of the early modern period in European history, meaning 1500 would be considered part of the medieval era. The average home had a dirt floor, which isn't very sanitary, and the average home also had thatched roofs. Rodents and bugs would find their way into the roof, and a lot of times they'd fall through. Ever seen pictures of medieval beds with a canopy above them? That was mostly to keep warmth in your bed, but if you weren't wealthy, it was also to keep out bugs and rodents that would fall from your thatched roof ceiling that had been living in your thatched roof ceiling. Most beds were made from straw and could contain bugs and lice. During medieval times, soap was primarily used for medicinal and personal hygiene purposes rather than for cleaning clothes or other household items. When cooking, the average person would cook their food, and if any soup was left over in the pot, they'd let it sit out and use it to make more soup the next day. I'm scared to eat at potlucks, but I don't think the average person back then was really concerned about germs or cross-contamination.
Right. Um, is the thing about the is the thing about the canopies true?
Yes.
So the whole time you were talking, your cats were having a death match right over your shoulder. I don't know if you could see it. Like one of them was just like strangling the other. So
No, I
yeah.
couldn't.
If
That's
you're
hilarious.
watching on the video on Spotify or YouTube, just roll back. They're just going to town.
That is
That's
hilarious.
terrifying. Yeah, those conditions don't sound enviable.
No. So,
And like, what was the rent on one of those thatch huts anyway? Probably like 1,600 septums or whatever
yeah,
they
I don't
used.
know. It honestly wouldn't have been worth anything at that point because everybody's shitting in a bucket and throwing it in the street. So I would have paid
Right.
negative $5 a month for that piece of shit.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. I'd be moving off to Duloc or wherever.
Duloc,
Where was Lord Farquaad the
Lord
Lord
Farquaad,
over?
yes.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
where I'm going.
gosh. Yeah,
It's a perfect place.
do it. All right. I'm going to continue. But
Please.
as you know, I'm getting into it. Obviously, we're talking about something that takes place in the medieval era. So,
So
buckle
some
up.
mid-level evils about to go down on
Yeah,
NKN Pod.
we're going to share some mid information, that's for sure. I
Please
have been
proceed.
sick for over a week now
Mhm.
with a cold, and it's gotten pretty bad. But I can go to my doctor, right? I can visit my doctor. I can even do a telehealth visit as long as my insurance covers it. And it's very convenient. But back then, you're basically shit out of luck, and your life expectancy was about 35 years unless you were wealthy.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. They didn't have TikTok or YouTube back then, so the entertainment consisted of plays, singing, dancing, or hunting. Think of all the time they had since they weren't doom scrolling on their phones. But let's get back to the dancing bit. There were many different types of dancing techniques, but in the year 1518, the rules of dancing were broken.
Okay, so that sounds like the back of an old-timey, like, Footloose shot in Utah or something. All love to
Outright
Utah.
in the Bible Belt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Baptists don't dance or whatever it is, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, man, we're talking about something that was going to fundamentally change the game when it came to dancing, much like break dancing did once people discovered bones.
Yeah, and once people discovered ray gun, definitely.
Yes, absolutely. All the way to the Olympics. If we could send her back, like, 500 years, imagine what they would have thought.
Right. Have you seen the memes where it's like, I gave a child from the Renaissance era a crispy Sprite from McDonald's and they died?
You're right. Yes.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you would take back with you?
Definitely my glasses.
Your glasses. Did they not have glasses yet then?
I'd
I'll
have to
look
Google
that
it.
up later. Yeah, I feel like I see some
have to
pretty
Google
old
it.
illustrations with glasses.
I don't know.
I don't know what I'd take back. Probably like a psilocybin mushroom or something. I just want
Let's
like
see.
one person to have a great experience. Hate
When
to
were
phone it
glasses
in, but like
invented?
some Zen.
Some Zen? Some Zen pouches? Okay. Oh, okay. The first corrective eyeglasses were invented in Italy between 1268 and 1300. Huh.
Oh, okay.
Dude, I don't know that I would want to go back there. It would be cool for like 4 hours, like a Renaissance fair.
Exactly. Exactly like a Renaissance fair. Except I always say, anywhere, even just a nice hike is great until you have to use the bathroom.
Right. And you're
so,
like,
yeah.
okay, I want to go back to my toilet and running water now.
Exactly. My,
Yeah.
marginally fewer rats falling off the ceiling.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. On July 14th, 1518, in Strasbourg, which was then a free city within the Holy Roman Empire and now France, a woman named Frau Trophia began dancing in the street on the narrow, cobbled street outside her home. As far as we know, she had no musical accompaniment, but simply began to dance. She kept up her solo dance-a-thon for nearly a week in the summer heat, and before long, some 36 other people had joined. By August, the dancing epidemic had claimed as many as 400 victims. With no other explanation for the phenomenon, local physicians blamed it on hot blood and suggested the afflicted simply gyrate the fever away. Ethan, do you think you would have joined?
Maybe for like a millisecond. Gyrate away. Isn't that just dancing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Gyrate
no.
away. I know,
okay,
right?
That could be a hit, like I don't know, Diplo song. But
maybe.
Anyway, I think if there's like a flash mob, I'm usually too embarrassed, like, for them and myself, and I just try to get out of there.
Yeah, I think that's true for me too, because I'm like, what is everybody doing? Don't you know everyone's staring at you right now?
I mean, if it happened now, I would assume some people were just trying to film a YouTube video or a TikTok or maybe an X or something.
Right.
Whatever you call them.
Influencer? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say I'm just getting out of there. If it was back in the 1500s, so I feel like if movies are an accurate indicator, that's their favorite times, like festivals, dancing. They do that thing like in Midsummer where they like put the ribbons around the pole.
Yeah, I mean, what else did they have to do?
Chores.
I mean, for entertainment at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. Cow tipping. I don't even know if they discovered that yet.
Cow tipping? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. So, 400 people just dancing. No music, nothing. She started in July, and by August, there were 400.
Simultaneously, or that was
in a month?
Oh, geez, okay.
In a month, yeah.
And victims as in they just started dancing. They didn't die, right?
We'll get there.
Oh no.
So all of this is happening, and the church and the nobles tried to get control of the people dancing, but because they couldn't get them to stop, they decided to just get more dancers.
Okay.
So they
It's
set
not
up a stage, and professional dancers were hired for the event. Apparently, if they couldn't stop the dancing, they'd be the ones in charge. The town even brought in a band to supply the music. However, it wasn't long before the marathon began to drain the dancers. Many collapsed from exhaustion, and some tragically died from strokes and heart attacks. The bizarre event only came to an end in September, when the dancers were taken to a mountaintop shrine to seek absolution through prayer. Historians aren't sure if it was like a conga line or if they had them do the limbo or the truffle shuffle to the mountaintop. But this took place for 3 whole months. Imagine trying to sleep and people are nonstop dancing outside your house.
Yeah.
You don't even have double paned windows.
Right, exactly,
Okay?
exactly. You have like a wood shutter and that's it.
Right.
So this is weird that they introduced some kind of dance battle-y element to this so early on.
Right, that's kind of what it
the sheer
became.
number of people. I didn't know groups that big were allowed to congregate back in the ancient medieval times.
I don't know.
Like, I mean,
But
it's a good sized village right there. I've lived in towns smaller than 400.
this is true.
Yeah.
You have. But there were also murders that happened. So,
Out there? I don't think anyone ever proved that.
okay.
You say if there's no murder weapon, then there's no murder.
So that is the dancing plague of 1518. And it might sound like the stuff of legend, but it's well documented in 16th century historical records. It's also not the only known incident of its kind. Similar manias took place in Switzerland, Germany, and Holland, though few were as large or deadly as the one in 1518. In the year 1021, 18 people gathered outside a church in the German town of Kolbeck and danced with wild abandon. The priest, unable to perform mass because of the dancing dinguses outside, ordered them to stop. Ignoring him, they held hands and danced a ring of sin, clapping, leaping, and chanting in unison. That sounds kind of fun. But,
yeah, this is wild.
The enraged priest, recorded by a local chronicler, cursed them to dance for an entire year as a punishment for their outrageous behavior. It worked. Not until the following Christmas did the dancers regain control of their limbs. Exhausted and repentant, they fell into a deep sleep, and some of them never woke.
Geez, that seems like a bit harsh of a sentence.
Yeah.
But, man, I didn't know curses were like a real thing people were doing. Power of suggestion, I guess, when it's 1,000 years ago and people don't have Google.
Honestly, I think that's probably it, because, I mean, I don't know. And back then in medieval times, like, the church had a lot of power and say, so just, like, I don't know. We can kind of dig into the theories at the end of the episode, but I wanted to kind of talk about, but that is definitely something we will talk about.
Right. But
because
yeah, point being, though, this isn't the 1500s. This isn't the first time. This goes all the way back to the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least.
Right. That was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, over 1,000 years ago.
Another record of this takes place in the German town of Erfurt. Sorry, Erfurt. Erfurt.
That's all buddy.
Yeah.
If you're from Erfurt,
you don't know that,
Let
Ethan?
us know. No.
You're supposed to let me know. I'm joking. I wrote out pronunciations for all of these except for one. I forgot one, okay? I'm sorry. Another record of this takes place in the German town of Erfurt in 1247. Shortly after, 200 people are said to have danced impiously on a bridge over the Moselle River in Maastricht until it collapsed, drowning them all. Likewise, dozens of medieval authors recount the terrible compulsion to dance that in 1374 swept across western Germany, the Low Countries, and northeastern France. Chronicles agree that thousands of people danced in agony for days or weeks, screaming of terrible visions and imploring priests and monks to save their souls. A few decades later, the abbot of a monastery near the city of Trier recalled an amazing epidemic in which a collection of hallucinating dancers hopped and leapt for as long as 6 months, some of them dying after breaking ribs or loins.
Wow. So, number one, a couple extremes. One, I don't know like why dancing is always deemed sinful or unpious or whatever the word they used was. Unless, like, going along with this, if it's one of those things where like dancing was a catch-all term for other such types of gyration or whatever was prescribed. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never danced like your and Kayla's wedding reception. You know, people were going ham on the
Sure.
dance floor.
Yeah, that's
I could
true.
name a few names if you want. They were
We better not.
gyrating on the floor.
There may have been a few.
And we had all had a lot to drink, you know, and I fell down the stairs a little
Did
bit.
you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know if I heard
It's
this.
okay. I fell down the stairs.
No. Well, what were you doing?
But I was okay. But I never like ripped my loin.
Sure. So what we're saying, you got to do more extreme than boogie out on the dance
Yeah.
floor and then roll down the 3-story steps to break your loin. So these
like,
kids were going ham.
Like,
and
if
I
you
say
think
kids because again, these people were only living to 35. We can
Right.
assume they're like influencer age.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And also, if you think you're cool because you do Zumba, check these guys out.
Right.
Maybe this is what you should be doing.
Maybe so.
So all of these records sound absolutely unbelievable, right?
I don't believe
Yes.
half of this.
Okay. But there are detailed accounts of these, and even the 1518 epidemic was recorded with the help of municipal orders, sermons, and vivid descriptions left behind by the brilliant Renaissance physician Paracelsus. These outbreaks represent a real and fascinating enigma.
I would say yes.
Yes. Not an enema, an enigma.
They hadn't invented that yet.
No. Now we got ladies doing coffee enemas on TikTok.
What?
Yeah.
I'm glad my algorithm hasn't picked that up yet, but I'm gonna.
Well, somebody sent it to me. It wasn't
doesn't.
on my FYP.
Okay, sure.
I was like, what the hell? One point in which contemporary and modern writers agree is that the dancers were acting involuntarily. They writhed in agony, screamed for help, and pleaded for mercy. So what could have driven them to dance against their will? One theory suggests they had consumed ergot, a mold that grows on ripening rye and can induce hallucinations, spasms, and tremors. Ergotism outbreaks were indeed common in medieval Europe when people ate contaminated flour. However, this theory seems implausible, as it's unlikely that those poisoned by ergot could have danced for days on end, nor would so many individuals have reacted to its hallucinogenic properties in the same way. Additionally, the ergotism theory doesn't account for why nearly every outbreak occurred near the Rhine and Moselle rivers, regions connected by waterways, but with differing climates and crops.
For sure. So it is in a similar geographical range. So we're guessing that this is something that is contagious. Could it be a fungus growing on a particular crop? Maybe. Everybody trips a little bit differently, but I mean, it's not Adderall. I don't know how it's just keeping them dancing for weeks on end.
Right. Ergotamine is the main psychoactive product of ergot fungi. It is structurally related to the drug known as LSD.
Okay, geez,
And
okay.
Yes, I did a lot of digging for this episode.
Okay, we'll get some chemistry here.
And is the substance from which LSD-25 was originally synthesized. The same fungus has also been implicated in other major historical anomalies, including the Salem witch trials. But according to Google, a bad LSD trip wouldn't last more than 9 or 12 hours, with the main effects including visual hallucinations, distorted perception of time, mood swings, and impaired judgment. This simply wouldn't explain dancing for weeks on end.
I would think not. Like, that's pretty funky. It's like some kind of, I
Right.
don't even know if hypnotism could do that, like drop you somewhere for a couple of weeks.
Right. I've
Yeah.
never done LSD, so I had to Google how long it lasts in your
You
system.
never
So
tried it?
I'm probably on a watch list now.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So a couple of things with that. My first thought is maybe it's something that they're being exposed to then repeatedly. Like, we don't have to assume that, they just, if they have a contaminated soup and then they're leaving that out overnight and just using it to make the soup the next day, like in the
Right.
opening, like, yeah, maybe
Could it
it's
be some form
constant
of
exposure.
bacteria?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Right. What we do know, however, is that the victims of the dancing epidemics were experiencing altered states of consciousness, as evidenced by their remarkable endurance. In this trance like state, they would have been much less aware of their physical exhaustion and the pain from sore, swollen, and injured feet. Witnesses from 1374 described the afflicted as wild, frenzied, and seeing visions. The dancers called out the names of devils, exhibited strange aversions to pointed shoes and the color red, and claimed to be drowning in a sea of red blood. A 1564 illustration by Pieter, they can't just fucking spell it normal, Pieter. We're going to go with Peter Bruegel. The elder even shows a group of women dancing uncontrollably, their faces marked by distant, detached expressions, typically of those deeply entranced. So
Gotcha,
I'll send
gotcha.
that to you now so you can see it.
Yeah,
We'll put it in
absolutely.
the episode.
But yeah, so this stuff is pretty serious, and while some people see it as a nuisance, some people are quickly responding to it like an affliction. I don't know if
Right.
I've known anybody who got a fixation so rough like dancing or something that they just could not stop.
Right. I have never heard of that at all. I mean, like, the only thing that comes close is like when I'm driving in the snow and I'm like, I can't stop, and then I like hit somebody.
Maybe,
But I've
but
never
that's not
danced.
contagious. I was gonna
No.
say I hate when that happens. I don't know. I've known a couple
Right.
people who love drugs so much that they just couldn't stop doing them.
Sometimes it happens,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, hold on, it came through. Hey, that's a
Okay.
lovely painting. It looks fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
it does look
saturation's
fun.
really up on the red. It gives it a certain air of violence.
Yeah.
It's miasmic. Ugh.
High levels of psychological distress can significantly increase the likelihood of someone entering an involuntary trance state. It seems unlikely to be a mere coincidence that the 1374 dancing plague spread most intensely in areas already devastated by the harshest deluge of the 14th century. Similarly, in 1518, the people of Strasbourg and its surroundings were suffering acute distress following a series of terrible harvests, skyrocketing grain prices, the arrival of syphilis, and the recurrence of old plagues like leprosy and the Black Death. Even by the harsh standards of the Middle Ages, these were particularly brutal years for the people.
Gotcha. So things were bad, but at the same time, is that deluge? Is that just a lot of rain? I guess
I
that's the
believe
context I've like heard it
so.
in. So that would explain like the poor crops, but it could also explain different,
Yeah,
fungi growing
it's more
crazy.
like flooding.
Sure.
Yeah.
So times were
Like
tough, and even if they were unrelated things, we're talking about obviously traumatic stress is a thing.
right. So yeah, while despair may have created the conditions for which an extreme psychological reaction, it doesn't explain why so many chose to dance in their misery. Why didn't they sob, scream, riot, or fight? Like I don't understand that how dancing could become that.
Unless one person started and everyone else kind of followed suit as they figure out that's the way we express how we're feeling. I've even seen that happen in like theater departments in high schools. One kid decides to dance to get their feelings out, and before long you got a high school musical situation.
Sure. I feel like the insurrection day could have been a lot different had they all just been dancing, but
Honestly, probably would have been more effective.
I think so. If they were just
Exactly.
all gyrating together
Yeah,
in a
then
crowd instead of storming.
I think the next I was gonna say the next insurrection, but not that I was at the last one per se.
No.
But
No, of course not.
um but anyway, like the next time I'm in an awkward situation, I'm just gonna try to dance it out, see what happens. Maybe there's
Yeah,
something
just start
to this.
dancing.
Yeah.
So, okay, Ethan, do you have any theories as to what this could be?
I mean, I think it could be a combination of a few things. Could be one of those, ergot situations, where something's contaminated and people get a notion by seeing someone else and it just rolls like that. The other thing that I could think of is maybe this is something that just got exaggerated over time. Like there were a few instances and, ripple effects. People say dozens, people say as many as 100, then people say
Mm-hmm.
hundreds. And before long, it's escalated to be this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and it is hard to, I mean, we have record of all of these things happening, but there's not an exact number that has been recorded like repeatedly.
Sure, sure, sure.
So it's
And
hard to
again,
know
we're
how many
talking
people
500
exactly.
years ago. Like
Right.
it's wild.
Right. So with this happening in the medieval times, people thought it could also be a curse or that it was something supernatural. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it sounded like that one chronicler or priest or whoever he was cursed a few of these people, and I don't know if the curse just went down generation after generation. That could explain something about it too.
What was the
I think most curses can be drummed up to bad attitude, like
I feel like the only curse that has actually worked that I know of, um, wasn't it Madame Zeroni from Holes?
okay. Delivered that so straight.
I
Yeah,
almost said Madame Zamboni, and I was like, that's not right. It's not a
Oh
Zamboni.
no, 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 no. That is something though. That's another good word.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I necessarily. I don't want to say I don't believe in curses, but I know we have a few witches who listen, and I don't want to step on toes in case I'm wrong.
Sure. I don't know, because I've never like taken. I don't think like. Do you think you have to be a believer in the supernatural to think curses exist?
I think
Because
it
I
just
think they're
depend.
separate.
I think it had to, you know, depend on your definition of curse.
True.
Again, I say, and I do feel like it's an attitude thing. Like, people say, oh, you jinxed me, but it's because they brought something up. It got in your head. You lost your concentration or momentum. And then, it
True.
self-fulfilled a prophecy.
There you go.
Or,
Yeah.
even cursing, you could say like that's a public declaration of saying like my family doesn't support your family. So people who like me don't like you anymore. My
Uh-oh.
family curses yours.
I curse you.
Yeah.
I curse at people a lot when like they're driving bad.
Same, sister, same.
I try to do it when my kids aren't in the car with me, but I'm not perfect.
Yeah,
So.
what can you do? What can you do? The kids are resilient like that. They'll be okay.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't see any reason you can get to it from a couple different directions. I'm sure some people believe in them in a supernatural sense, and I think there's probably something more. It's, what would you say? Agnostic.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Some things I had looked up that I thought could be a possibility for some of the people who were dancing nonstop. It's just hard for me to logically or be able to logically explain how possibly hundreds of people were dancing to their deaths, essentially. So while these theories could be the case for one, it may not be the case for everyone. That makes
Sure.
sense. As I previously mentioned, in medieval times, syphilis was rampant. Neurosyphilis is a complication of syphilis that affects the nervous system, and they didn't have treatment for it like we do today. Symptoms include tremors, weakness, abnormal gait, numbness in the extremities, and mental health issues. Complications of tertiary syphilis include brain damage. Depending on which part is damaged, symptoms could range from motor effects, such as tremors, to mood disorders, such as having delusions of grandeur. Is that how you say it? Grandeur? Why
Grandeur,
do I not
yeah.
know how to talk
You got it.
today, Ethan? But because other symptoms include muscle weakness, pain, decreased muscle coordination, and loss of movement of the limbs, I'm not 100% sold this could be the cause.
Yeah. At the same time, like abnormal gait, like getting like, weird mannerisms about you being in pain, that could be, they could see that as, miserable dancing or agonized dancing or whatever the term they used was.
Actually,
And that's
yeah,
just how they describe it.
that would make sense. They're gyrating the syphilis away,
Yeah,
but they
for
don't
sure,
know
for
it.
sure, for sure.
Okay.
Again, like, I don't know if it's also one of those telephone things that maybe somebody said dance in the descriptive sense more than the literal, and it just got exaggerated over time. That could be it.
Yeah, that could be.
But probably not.
Yeah. Well, we can't go back and ask them at this point, so we're just theorizing at this point. In another episode that you did, Ethan, we discussed mad cow disease, right?
Yes.
And the variant, can you pronounce it for me?
The variant.
The Creutzfeldt-Jakob
Yeah,
disease?
Creutzfeldt-Jakob, I think.
Okay, yes. Yeah, that was way better. Is a rare disease caused by a prion, as we learned in your episode, which is an infectious protein. There are only a handful of prions that we know of, all of which eat your brain tissue, basically,
yeah.
and then you die. They're all terminal. Like, we don't have a cure for any of these.
Absolutely. Scary stuff.
Yeah. With the lack of information on how to basically not live in disgust, like, do you think it's possible that there could have been a prion that existed back then and drove everyone mad?
I guess it could have been. It could have been that. It could have been an amoeba. I didn't think about that. It could be an actual affliction that just didn't survive. Like, if it was a quick mutation and didn't figure out how to, sustain itself once it ran out of hosts.
Yeah.
That's scary, but it's an interesting thought.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could just see all the ancient diseases that have died out over time.
Well, this next one, I've got one more for you. While it's difficult to know for sure because science wasn't as advanced in the 1500s, based on historical medical records, it's highly likely that rheumatic fever existed in medieval times, with descriptions of symptoms resembling the disease found in writings from Hippocrates, who documented conditions that strongly suggest the presence of rheumatic fever, even though the disease wasn't explicitly named that at the time.
Sure.
So scarlet fever and strep throat are group A streptococcus infections. A type of bacteria called group A streptococcus causes both infections. So it can cause scarlet fever and strep throat.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Today, healthcare providers treat them with antibiotics. Rheumatic fever is a very rare complication of scarlet fever and strep throat and can happen when either of these infections go untreated. It's an autoimmune condition that inflames your tissues, such as the joints and heart. Another name for the disease is acute rheumatic fever. It occurs when your child's immune system overreacts to an untreated strep throat or scarlet fever infection. And one of the most common symptoms of the disease is a red, jagged rash. But if untreated, as it was back then, this can also lead to chorea, which is a neurological condition characterized by involuntary, brief, and irregular movements. So I found a book written by a guy named Justus Frederick Carl from 1888 called The Black Death and the Dancing Mania. Pages 122 and 123 made a shocking correlation to the choria we know today, but I'm not 100% certain that they have the same meaning. And it reads as this.
Sure.
So, quote, Paracelsus divides the St. Vitus's dance into 3 kinds. So this is Paracelsus giving his account of the dancing plague of 1518.
Sure.
And his thoughts on it. First, that which arises from imagination, by which the original dancing plague is to be understood. So he's saying everyone's making it up.
Right.
I would go as so far to say that this is what we would consider mass hysteria today.
Sure. So there's skeptics even at this time.
Yeah. Continued. Secondly, that which arises from sensual desires, depending on the will. And then in parentheses, they have choria lasciva.
Whew. Okay.
Thirdly, that which arises from corporeal causes. And then in parentheses, choria naturalis, in parentheses, which according to a strange notion of his own, he explained by maintaining that in certain vessels which are susceptible in an internal pruriency and thence produce laughter, the blood is set in commotion in consequence of an alteration in the vital spirits, whereby involuntary fits of intoxicating joy and a propensity to dance are occasioned. To this notion he was no doubt led from having observed a milder form of St. Vitus's dance, not uncommon in his time, which was accompanied by involuntary laughter, and which bore a resemblance to the hysterical laughter of the moderns, except that it was characterized by more pleasurable sensations and by an extravagant propensity to dance. We're almost done. There was no howling, screaming, and jumping, as in the severer form, disposition to dance by any means insuperable. I said that wrong.
No, you're good.
Insuperable.
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 Okay. I don't even know that word. But okay.
Indubitably.
Okay.
Patients thus affected, although they had not a complete control over their understandings, yet were sufficiently self-possessed during the attack to obey the directions which they received. There were even some among them who did not dance at all, but only felt an involuntary impulse to allay the internal sense, which is the usual forerunner of an attack of this kind, by laughter, quick walking, carried to the extent of producing fatigue. The disorder, so different from the original type, evidently approximates to the modern choria, or rather is in perfect accordance with it, even to the less essential symptom of laughter. End quote.
Wow, so that's a lot, but I mean, what better observation do you get than that?
Right. So, but I know in medieval times there were tons of outbreaks. Like, people were dying all the time, like way more than they are now. Which I'm not saying people die, it's a big deal.
Sure.
But we have with modern medicine and science, we're able to kind of combat things better, or at least manage symptoms way easier. And if this theory is true, then that means any kid who got scarlet fever or strep and survived could have potentially had rheumatic fever.
Sure, just lingering after that.
Which is because it's an autoimmune condition that could have eventually sparked as choria, where you start to lose control over your movements, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
Yeah, it tracks, and like you're saying, we don't know what existed back then, and with no ability to treat it. Like right now, if somebody danced for even a couple of days, an orderly would come in, wearing a nice clean white coat and stab you with a trank, and
oh yeah,
you can't just do whatever you want. You can't get away with that. We won't let you.
Well, currently, the world record for the longest dance marathon by an individual is 127 hours.
I'm saying I wouldn't have let them do that. If I'd
You
been
wouldn't,
around, if I'd had a say, that wouldn't have happened at all.
you would you shove a needle in their back or
Yeah,
like,
I would have. I would have taken them out, honestly. I was just like a tiny little bit of fent.
oh
I'm
my
like, good
gosh, just a
night.
little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. This ain't gonna hurt you. Um,
Yeah,
Nobody take
like,
fentanyl. Okay.
no,
But
no.
anyway, no, seriously, I would not let something like that happen in my community. Like if they got a permit, maybe I would let a group for like a fundraiser dance up to 48 hours. After that, like I'm not
Then
standing
you're
up for
like,
it.
yeah, you're done.
Yeah, I'm like, you're
You're
making
done.
everybody else tired. You're making us
You're
uncomfortable.
I'm tired just watching
Yeah,
you, kid.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't know how likely that whole thing is
Mhm.
with Korea, but I did enjoy going down that rabbit hole. I still find it hard to believe that every single person who partook in the 1518 dancing plague would have this or would have been under some type of affliction. I do think some of the people involved, while they could have had health issues, I seriously think mass hysteria played a big part in
Yeah,
this.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, things can be contagious mentally and emotionally. And I
Right.
mean, yeah, like we see kind of similar stuff like this happen to to this day. Nothing this wild, which is why we're talking about it 500 years later.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, any of these could be a valid explanation. I mean, it's still pretty outrageous, but outrageous stuff happens sometimes.
That is very true.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
Um
said it if it wasn't.
that concludes my research on the dancing plague of 1518. My sources were history.com, britannica.com, Wikipedia. There's a YouTube video which I'll make sure to link in there
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
the life of an average person in the 1500s if you're interested. Lancelet, thelancelet.com, the CDC, the Cleveland and clinic.org, and the book The Black Death and the Dancing Mania by Justice Frederick Carl.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, Bailey, if you had to choose between them dropping COVID 2025 and a new dancing plague, which would you choose? I have my
Uh,
answer ready.
I might do the dancing.
I'm thinking the same thing because after 48 hours, you can start tranking them.
Yeah,
It's a bigger crime
right?
to dance longer than that than it is to tranquilize someone.
You just gave me another theory.
What's that?
What if they were all zombies?
Ooh, that could have been it. Either zombies or influencers. Heck, maybe just a really good like distiller was passing through the community. Are you resting
It
your
could have
elbow on
been.
a live cat?
Oh
Oh,
no, she's up on against my arm.
oh,
She
she was
always has to
fully an
be
armrest.
right next to
That's
me.
cute. But yeah, Bailey, this is some wild stuff. I'm hoping that this doesn't come back just because I think it'd be a little cringy if it did. Because nowadays people would
I
just be doing Fortnite dances or TikTok dances.
Okay, let's be real though. TikTok is essentially just people dancing in front of their camera or like in their houses or public places anyway. And it's like you do you, whatever's fun for you, but sometimes it's cringe, like especially if you're blocking the lane in the grocery aisle and I'm trying to
Yeah,
shop.
exactly.
Um, but I feel like it would just get worse, but then maybe people would stop. Maybe we'd burn ourselves out.
It could be. I always say if you want to dance like nobody is watching, dance where nobody can see you. Um,
That's great.
no, no, no.
You do you is Kayla a good dancer?
Yeah, she's electric. She's an
Oh, okay.
enthusiastic dancer at the very least.
I was gonna say if there's anybody you know who's not a good dancer, you should put that on a canvas for them, like
That's a tapestry.
with a portrait of them with the words like right over their face.
It's actually pretty good, but printed out with the like impact meme font.
Yeah,
No, everybody I know is a very good dancer, so I don't really have that issue.
I'm not.
Yeah, you're
So
pretty good. You're pretty good.
I dance occasionally. Like I'll do not the truffle shuffle
Full
from
shuffle.
the Goonies. What is that dance?
Cupid shuffle?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the truffle shuffle, though. It's okay. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes there's a group dance, or if you go to like one of those cowboy bars or whatever, where
Oh God.
and everyone gets up and they're all doing that boot scoot and boogie or whatever it is. My
Mm-hmm.
issue is I
Were they
never
like
know.
kick, kick?
I can only do the choreographed dances if the lyrics are telling me what to do. I can't memorize it.
Yeah, the one that's like to the left now, y'all.
Yeah.
Two hops this time.
Has anyone
Two
made
hops this time.
a version where the number of hops just keep going up?
Surely there's something like that out there.
Or just enough to get people tired. Just like 24 hops this time. You know?
If there is, I'm going to use that for my kids when we're snowed in next time. Because, oh my God.
Yeah, are you prepared for it?
Not in the slightest.
Oh, man.
It's snowing again right now, actually.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see those snowflakes dancing their way down from heaven, landing upon hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, Dancing Bailey, again, great episode. Everybody, thanks for watching. Welcome back. First episode of 2025. Hopefully not the last. If we're still around, if the dancing plague hasn't caught us, then we'll dance right back to the microphones here in a couple of weeks. You can find us on Instagram at NKNPod. Listen on Spotify. Drop us a review if you would be so kind. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks.